A quick word before we get into this week's episode.
I was talking to a head of school recently who said, Peter, we've got a strong strategic plan, but every time we try to act on it, things stall. If that sounds familiar, you're not alone. Big goals are easy to write down, but they often get bogged down in the daily, making it hard to stay strategic. That's why I built the school operating system. It's a framework that helps you align your team and focus your priorities so you can actually execute the plan. We work alongside you to extrapolate a one-year plan from your existing strategic plan, break it into 90-day sprints, and design a much more effective meeting rhythm that moves your team closer to your strategic vision every single day. And that's just the start. We support much more to help you build the operational infrastructure your plan needs to succeed. If you're serious about making traction this year, let's talk. Visit moonshotos.com/SOS. That's moonshotos.com/SOS to learn more and set up a time to chat about the school operating system. Hi there, my friend. I'm Peter Barron. Welcome to today's episode of the Independent School Moonshot podcast. I am so excited to be joined by Karl Hebenstreit, founder and CEO of Perform and Function. Karl and I were introduced to each other not too long ago, and we just got into this really interesting conversation around organizational design and healthy teams and just creating great places to work. And so today we're going to get into some of that. And we'll just do a couple of minutes, but I'm very grateful that Karl has taken time out of his busy schedule to join me on the show. And with that, Karl, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Peter. I'm thrilled to be here. And thank you for making the time and inviting me to be here with you.
Well, I can't wait to dig into all of this. But before we do, Karl, can you introduce yourself and your company, Perform and Function?
Well, thank you for the introduction that you already provided. So Perform and Function is an executive coaching, leadership development consulting firm. I do organization development, leadership development, team development, and basically really informed by the Enneagram. The Enneagram is one of my favorite tools to use. And I don't only use the Enneagram, but I do see that it applies to many situations. And I love having one framework to be able to use and introduce to people that they can then use for everything. So my journey has taken me to study the Enneagram to help with figuring how to help organizations attract, retain, and motivate their employees, engaging them. I know that's a huge topic of conversation and challenge for many leaders and organizations. In retention, especially in engagement and motivation of their employees. And I love doing speaking engagements around the topic of resilience and the Enneagram. And I've in the process, I have also published 3 books, and 2 of them specific to the Enneagram. One is The How and Why, Taking Care of Business with the Enneagram. The other one is Nina and the Really, Really Tough Decision, which is a children's introduction to the Enneagram, so that hopefully that'll make their lives easier and not have to learn it after, when we've learned it later on, when we've made some mistakes and made some biased judgments that we shouldn't have made, and helped us to be more emotionally intelligent at an early age. That would have been a huge, huge boon for us. And then the third book is Explicit Expectations, around helping people who've never really led before or managed before, who have that thrust upon them, to really understand what the expectation is for them and how to make sure that those expectations are mutually understood.
Karl, you spent a lot of time in your career trying to understand, help leaders understand the why behind behavior.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm curious, how did that journey lead you into organizational psychology, lead you to the Enneagram as your core framework?
That's a great question. And I think you actually touch on the specific reason, the why. What is the reason behind the behavior that we see? And there are many other instruments, all of which I was introduced to in all my studies and in my organizational life when I was an internal consultant, human resources and organization development, leadership development. And all the other instruments that are out there are really focused on behaviors. So this is the behavior that we're going to see for this person. Let's classify it. Let's put this person in a box based on this behavior. But we don't understand the reason behind the behavior. So we see a behavior and then we make an attribution, a fundamental attribution error based on our own perspectives, our own lives, our own experiences, which is what I like to say is been really impressed upon us by the golden rule. Everyone's talking about the golden rule, treat others according to the golden rule. And that really leads us down to this path of really looking at ourselves as having the answer about why other people are behaving the way they're behaving. So we're coming up with these expectations or reasons. And that's not true. We really need to focus on the fact that people are different and they're motivated by different things. So the same behavior that we see being exhibited by 4 or 5 different people may have totally different reason behind it. And that's what fascinated me. So when I was introduced to the Enneagram in my PhD studies, and I compared it to all the other systems that I'd known before, like the Myers-Briggs and the DISC, I saw the difference and I saw the power that understanding why someone's doing what they're doing and really understanding what their pain points are, what their challenges are, what their worldview is, and how it's different from our own, because it is. There are 9 possible general viewpoints, and we have one, and there are 8 others out there. So we need to understand that not everyone has the same viewpoint that we do. And once we understand that, then we can start chipping away at that golden rule and start going more into the platinum and rhodium rules about treating others the way that they want to be treated. And then going a step further with the rhodium rule and say, okay, let's integrate that into our own worldview and make it more expansive and understand the world as it really is, as opposed to the world as we see it through our own fixated, myopic lens.
So many questions. So walk me through the 9 types of the Enneagram, and then talk about the golden rule and others. Like, I'm curious. I don't know a lot about that.
Yeah, so the golden rule is something that we've seen touted sometimes in religion, sometimes in education, sometimes even in ads and in advertisements for hotel chains. I know Marriott was putting out there that they're all about the golden rule and they want to treat their customers the way that they want to be treated. And that's great. That would work perfectly if everyone were exactly the same. So if everyone had the same preferences for the same type of pillow, for the same type of bed, for the same type of, I'm just thinking Marriott right now, right? But same type of room design, the same type of, breakfast or whatever, that's fantastic. And the answer is everyone is different. And we have a lot of diversity in the world on many different levels. And so in order to understand people's differences and preferences and orientations and likes and dislikes, we really need to ask them. So that's stepping aside from golden rule, which assumes that we know everything and we know what's best for everyone else because we're putting it through the lens and filter of our own worldview. And instead, have a relationship with them and find out what's going on. What do you like? What's your pain point? What do you not like? What are you allergic to? If I have a birthday party and give you chocolate cake because I like chocolate cake, is that going to kill you? What's going to happen here? So it's really going to the platinum rule, figuring out what they like, like the Spice Girl said, tell me what you like, tell me what you want, what you really, really want. Right. So we don't know what they want. We need to ask them that. And then start seeing the world differently ourselves because they have a different perspective, which is also right. Our perspective isn't necessarily right and their perspective isn't wrong automatically. It's let's integrate these perspectives and have a broader worldview and then get this really robust understanding of the world once we start looking at these different lenses. And you asked me what those lenses are.
Yeah.
But that's going from the golden rule of me-centric to the platinum rule of you-centric and building that empathy. So golden rule is great because it's self-awareness, which we need in emotional intelligence. And then the platinum rule is the next step for emotional intelligence building, because then you're starting to have empathy for other people and understanding their point of view, their experience, their background, how they see things and why. And then the third part is integrating it and doing something about it. So integrating and expanding your own worldview. And I like to call it the rhodium rule because you're doing something with it. And that's the third part of emotional intelligence building. Do you want the 9? Or do you have another question before we go to the 9?
Yeah.
Okay. So the simplest way to break them up and make them understandable is you can look at them from 3 different ways or styles.
And this is the Enneagram.
This is the Enneagram, yeah.
Right.
It's an old ancient system that's been probably since the 70s made a resurgent, well, not a resurgence, an introduction probably is more the appropriate way to say it, into the more popular culture world and found its way into organizations because originally it was for spiritual development. So now there are many different applications for it. And executive coaching, of course, as I said earlier, is one of them, and how I use it in executive coaching too, and leadership development and team building and organization development. So if we look at it as there are 3 basic styles of thinking, 3 basic styles of feeling, and 3 basic styles of taking action that human beings have, we can then narrow it down to which one of those is our primary or core way of looking at the world and creating that worldview and motivating us. So I'm gonna play this out with you, and you have to pick between these 3. I'm gonna give you 3 chances of picking one of 3 different choices. So you'll end up with 3 at the end, 1 style for each.
Okay.
So let's start off with the feelings, the feeling center. How do you access your heart? So these are the types 2, 3, and 4. So type 2 is really all about helping others. It's looking externally to what other people's needs are, focus on others and really downplaying their own needs in order to meet those other people's needs and be liked and loved. So it's always pushing down their own needs and reaching out and helping other people achieve their goals. Probably in some cases, not even meeting their own goals because they're always helping others.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the type 2 way of accessing feelings and heart. Very intuitively knowing other people's needs and addressing those. The type 3 is more about, and by the way, the 2 is called the helper or giver or considerate helper. The type 3 is the performer or achiever, and the way that they access their feelings is really by not accessing their feelings. They push them aside and say, nope, feelings are going to get in the way of me achieving my goals. I need to achieve these goals. We'll deal with these feelings or not later. So that's the 3. The performer or achiever. The type 4 is the romantic, the artist, the individualist, creative, and it's all about feeling everything, feeling their own feelings, empathically feeling other people's feelings. It's just an overwhelm of feelings, just in a world of feelings always. So those are the 3 different styles of accessing feelings. If you had to pick which was your top way of accessing your feelings, without society's intervention of telling you how to act or behave, like this is your core, this is your default, without any overlays, what would you pick between 2, 3, and 4?
Summarize 4 for me again, if you don't mind.
So 4 is more, so we said 2 was externalized, right? Looking at other people. 4 is really internalized. It's looking at the feelings and the situations and how it's affecting themselves and how they're feeling. They're very creative. They're very authentic. They're very emotional. They're very genuine, and they go deep. They want to go really deep into other people's feelings as they go into their own feelings as well. And they will feel like the world doesn't really understand them because no one else really wants to go deep with them like that, right?
I would say that I'm probably 2.
Okay, 2. So we've selected 2 out of 2, 3, and 4. So 2 for your feeling style.
Yep.
Then let's look at thinking. Thinking is usually a lot easier because there are 3 different ways that we primarily access our head center. And by the way, we have all 9 of these types within us. So the difficulty that you had in identifying between 2, 3, and 4, it doesn't mean you only have 2. You also have 3 and 4, but maybe to a lesser extent, access to it.
Yeah, that is the hard part. I'm like, I see like a little bit here, a little bit there, but I definitely would lean more towards 2 because I find myself like always trying to put myself in position to help others. Like that's just, I don't know, it's just ingrained in me.
Perfect. All right. So let's look at 5, 6, and 7, which are the 3 different thinking styles.
Yeah.
So the easiest way to differentiate between them is 5 is objective. 5 is always looking at what's going on, all the information that's coming at you in the world and trying to make sense of it in an objective way, the good and the bad, and putting it all together objectively, coming up with frameworks and models and systems to predict what's going to happen because they don't want to look foolish. So that's the objective way.
So not being foolish is the driver.
Yeah. Not wanting to appear foolish. So wanting knowledge and wisdom so as not to appear foolish. Yeah.
Got it.
So that's the 5. So the fear there is not knowing enough or not knowing everything. So then we go into the less objective. So 6 is also taking information, but from a standpoint of worst case scenario planning. What is the danger? Because they're looking at being safe, comfortable, and secure. So what's the possible danger that's going to happen that they can then prepare for in case it does happen? They're going to put their plan in action. They're going to have a backup contingency plan. They're going to put it in action. They're going to be safe, comfortable, and secure. So 5, which is the observer or analyst, is objective. 6 is the loyal skeptic because it's always looking for the danger and the negative aspect that they can prepare for so they can be safe. And then the third thinking style is the opposite of worst case scenario. It's best case scenario planning. It's what's possible, what's exciting, what's novel, what's innovative, big picture, putting down, not even thinking about the negative stuff, the negative possible consequences or things that could happen. So it's very much about Pollyanna-ish and big picture and possibilities and options and vision. So between 5, 6, and 7, which of those are the primary way that you access your thinking?
I would love to put a poll out to the audience and say, like, what do you think my style is? Because I think I've probably made it pretty clear on this podcast and throughout my career that it's 7.
Yeah. Okay. 2, 7. Okay, now we have one more choice between the 3 different action styles.
By the way, this is the most vulnerable I've been on this podcast. No question.
Thank you. Thank you for doing that. Thank you for taking that journey.
It's great.
And hopefully that's going to inspire others to do the same, right?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
And now a word from our sponsor. Leading a school today can mean juggling a dozen different systems across offices, finance, fundraising, marketing, enrollment, and academics, all pulling your attention in different directions. At Blackbaud, we believe it shouldn't be that way. That's why we built Blackbaud's Total School Solution. It's a fully connected solution designed for private and independent school leaders who want a clear view of their entire operation. From tuition to transcript to donation, you get one ecosystem, one login, and one source of truth. This isn't about more software. It's about smarter strategy. When your systems work together, you spend less time chasing down data and more time leading. Want to see what Blackbaud's Total School Solution could do for your school? Visit blackbaud.com. That's BLACKBAUD.com to learn more.
So the action styles are 8, 9, and 1.
Okay.
So 8 is the boss, protector, general, director. Those are the classifications that would go along with that. And it's all about immediate execution, immediate action, and course correction along the way. And the action is usually taken through others. It's delegation. It's getting work done, executing on immediately, bringing others along with them to do that work, usually. So that's the immediate action. The 9 is more about, let's not take the action right away. Let's stop. Let's look at the whole picture. Let's look at the system. Let's see how everything fits together in the framework, how everything impacts everything else, because we don't want to create conflict. That's the driver for the 9. The 9 is
conflict in terms of like conflict of ideas, conflict of people. Like how would you define conflict?
Conflict of malaise, basically, because people aren't getting along. Yeah.
Okay. Got it.
So
I got it.
If people aren't getting along, they want an environment of peace and harmony. That's what they're seeking. The 9s are seeking that.
Yeah.
So they don't want to see people being upset with each other or debating each other or in conflict with each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the 9, the mediator, peacekeeper. So 8 is immediate action. 9 is we'll take action after we think about things and then make sure that no one's going to get hurt, that no one's going to be upset. Everyone's included. Let's get all the insights. Yeah. Very democratic, right? Very democratic way of inclusion. And then the type 1 is the perfectionist, is what's the right thing to do. So putting action through a lens of, let's look at the ethics of the situation. Let's look at our values. Let's look at what we're here to do, our mission, and put it through that filter and then make the decision at that point of what's the right thing to do. So the action is probably a little bit more immediate than the type 9, but not as immediate as the type 8.
I would say 1.
Okay. So between those 3, 2, 7, and 1, that would be called your triadic style or trifix or tri-type, depending on the school of the Enneagram that you subscribe to. And one of those is going to be your core type, right? So the type 2, again, everything that the type 2 does is done in order to be liked and loved, providing that help, hoping that the receivers are going to like and love them. And that's the core motivation for the type 2. The core motivation for the type 7 would be more about being free, not being constrained, being able to take advantage of options and opportunities as they become available to them, because they don't want to be limited, right? So the worst thing that you could do to a 7 is to limit them, to impose limits on them. The worst thing you could do to a 2 is not appreciate them for the help that they've provided.
Yep.
Even if you didn't ask for it. And then the type 1, their motivation is showing up and doing the right thing, finding out what is the right thing to do. Let's be perfect about it. Let's seek perfection. Let's go towards perfection. And the worst thing that you could do to a type 1 is you could tell them they're wrong, or even ask them to do something that goes against their values or morals. So between those 3, and by the way, we're not doing a test right now. It's just a very quick and dirty way of presenting the 9 different styles in a palatable way.
I would say probably 7. The 7 is where I lean most. I mean, I've always had a disposition to try to create new things and create impact, right? Like that's just always driven me. Yeah.
So when we find out, let's just assume we're not gonna say that it is. I mean, you obviously have to do some more work with that. But let's just assume that a type 7 is your core type. And again, you have all the 8 other styles within you at varying extents and abilities to access them. The 7 has an automatic line to 1, which you also call that as being your your action style. And it has an automatic line to 5. So what happens is, again, remember we said the worst thing you do to 7 is constrain them. And the 1 is really all about constraints. 1 is about laws and order and process and doing things a certain way. So that's a stress or stretch point for the type 7. So when we know someone's core type, we automatically know how they will behave under stress and what will stress them out and why, right? So we have these, it's a very powerful tool because you really understand that. And of course you have to use it ethically and not, push people's hot buttons on purpose because you know what those hot buttons are. And then the 7 goes to 5 in their comfort or release, which is a little bit more back, away from observing, just sitting back and just, maybe there's more quiet time. Maybe it's like a cave, a metaphorical cave that you go into. Maybe it's to study or research or read or whatever it is, but it's an observing type of role where the 7 would go to in their comfort. So it's not as go, go, go. It's not as let's take advantage of all these opportunities. It's much more of a introverted, stepping back type of way.
Oh my,
in there.
Kind of nailed me right there. I mean, honestly, one of the things I love doing deep dives. I just love like stepping back and processing. And I most certainly would not label myself an extrovert. I need that kind of quiet time to be able to process.
Yeah.
So this is really fascinating. Yeah.
And even though the type 7 is considered a more assertive or extroverted style, that doesn't mean that all 7s are extroverts.
Yeah. I would actually, I don't know what you think about like extrovert, ambivert, introvert, but I've always kind of considered myself an ambivert. Like I love it. I love getting out there. I love having those conversations, but then I need time to like in a quiet room by myself to decompress. Yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of times what we'll see is it's not just the core type at play. There's also something called an instinct. And there are 3, and this we're getting deeper, but just really quickly, there are 3 primary instincts that human beings have. And these are, what do you do first in a social situation, right?
Yeah.
So you might be describing yourself more as a self-preservation. So self-preservation is, let me take inventory of what my needs are first before I start helping others or interacting with others. So it could be, and that tends to be more introverted because you're more in tune of your own needs, right? So the self-preservation of any instinct and any of the types tends to have a lot more correlation with people being introverted. And then the social and then the one-on-one tend to be a little bit more ambivert and extroverted, actually the other way around.
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't know if that self-preservation doesn't necessarily resonate with me as much, but so much of what you've described really does does hit home. And I'm curious, Karl, like once you establish these types across teams,
Yeah.
talk to me about what the power behind that. Like what kind of opportunities does that open up for a team?
So hopefully what we'll see is that the teams are not overly indexed on one type. Like the leader hasn't hired everyone in their own image inadvertently or even advertently. Some people say that they want to use the Enneagram in hiring decisions, which by the way is unethical. And
I was going to ask that. Okay, that makes sense to me.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Your core type does not matter in any situation. It's your passion and your healthiness level, your integration of all the other types to be able to access all of the energies and the strengths of all the types that you're going to need to be successful. So core type doesn't really matter in anything. And by the way, I would say that even for all the other systems as well, even Myers-Briggs, when they say, oh, let's use Myers-Briggs to come up with your career trajectory and what you should go into. And yeah, that's not valid. What's valid is the person's passion and interest in doing it, and also their ability to flex into all the other ways that will help them do that.
Yeah. If
you have someone that's only looking at things and only has a one-trick pony, they're not going to be successful. Yeah. And I forgot the question.
Well, I'm just.
Oh, what do you do with teams? Yes. What do you?
Yeah. Because this is like really powerful information, and I would imagine that it ultimately is going to kind of recalibrate how people partner together, collaborate together, work together on a daily basis.
Yeah. What's really cool about it is when we have, individuals take the assessment to figure out what their core type is. So when when each individual has landed on their core type, then you can bring everyone together as a team, and then you can take all their results and aggregate them together. And then you can find out what the culture of the type of the team is. So you can have 10, 12, 20 people, however many people are on this team. And then you can have, when all these people come together, this is the predominant style that comes out because all of you, either this is your secondary or tertiary style or whatever, and it's bubbling up because this is where you're all landing on or convening. So, and it's fascinating because sometimes it's not even the core type of any of the people on the team, but if all of them, let's just say you had a team of 9 people and there was no type 4. I'm just going to pick on type 4 for a second here, because usually in corporates, we don't see type 4s represented as
and remind me
much.
Of type 4 again.
That's the romantic, the artist, the intense creative, the one about the feelings, right?
Yep.
You usually see type 4s going into nonprofit organizations, being artists, going into the arts, that kind of thing.
Gotcha.
But let's just say everyone on this team, their second highest score was type 4, even though they were scoring in the others were their core types. But this could be a type 4 team if the secondary score for everyone or the third score was so high that it was up there. And it would be funny because you don't have anyone who has type 4 as their core type.
But because
you would end up with 14.
Maybe it's the secondary thing. It's just kind of bringing all that together and you're realizing that that's the one that's emerging. So let's just play that out. If it was a type 4 team, what does that mean from a collaboration point of view?
So you have really important strengths that go along with each and every one of those types. And that's ultimately what we're doing. There are healthy versions and unhealthy versions of each type. And we're all human beings and we all fluctuate between healthy and unhealthy versions of our type, regardless of the development that we put in and the study and the growth that we've achieved. We're human. We're going to get triggered and it's going to happen. So we have to have grace for ourselves when that does happen.
Yeah.
So again, leveraging the strengths of the type 4, which are that deep empathy, that deep creativity, that authenticity, and then also making sure that any of the development areas or growth edges are also taken into consideration to make sure that those don't become pitfalls and that the team doesn't fail because of those.
Yeah.
What's really cool is I use an instrument called the IEQ9, and there's the IQ9 for individuals and there's the IQ9 for teams. The team report will actually predict and say, here are 8, 9, 10 different possible scenarios of what we predict based on your scores as a type, we're going to say type 4 team go ahead and let us know if this is actually happening on the team. And then I have people just anonymously vote. And then I see which have been the predicted ones and which are the actual ones happening. And then we can work with coming up with agreements and norms and ways of preventing this from escalating into something worse and keeping it in check and making sure it doesn't happen.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So what I'm hearing is, look, we're going to kind of establish who we are as a team, and then we're going to identify the challenges that we've been facing and use all of this assessment work that we've done as a vehicle to say, hey, like, how do we change this? Like, how do we overcome this and move in a new direction?
And it's a great way to do it because you're not blaming anyone or anything. It's just a systemic human thing that happens when you bring these 10, 20 people together, and it's predictable. It's amazingly predictable. I did a workshop once where we were going through, and then the leader of the group was mentioning some challenges that they were having. I said, hold on. And I clicked the next slide, and it was all the challenges that they were having because it was all the predicted challenges. And she was floored. She was like, how did you know this? This is just creepy. Because how did you know that this is exactly what we're going through? And it was all based on the team dynamics and the culture of the team, the style of the team.
Yeah. You know, Karl, one of the things that I have observed in the independent school world is that there has just been this kind of explosion of executive coaching.
Yeah.
Not something
Everywhere.
it was everywhere, right? And I think I've talked on the pod. I had an executive coach for 5 years, and she changed my life without question. I'm eternally grateful to her. So in your mind, you know, why do you think that's happened? Like, why do you think coaches are so critical to success?
So exactly what you're seeing with the schools is what I've seen in other corporate environments. And it used to be that coaching was only offered to the elite top of the organization, just the executives. And it was very expensive. It was in person. It could be $30,000 for 6 months. It was really, really coveted, and you knew you arrived when you had a coach.
Yep.
And then people saw the value of it. People saw the leaders that were going through the coaching were seeing exactly what you saw, life-changing, changed their ability to relate to their teams, to achieve better results through their teams, with their teams. And they thought, well, let's roll this down lower into the organization, which is not scalable or financially feasible in many situations.
Yeah.
And so what we then saw was this turnaround, that when this was this elite offering, and again, I think COVID really helped us with this, because as people began to continue their coaching in remote settings, they saw that it was possible to do that. You didn't have to physically go somewhere or have the coach come to you physically.
In 5 years, I don't think I ever sat in a coaching session in the same room with her. It was always either by phone or a Zoom. Yeah.
Exactly. So as they saw that you didn't have to have this in-person expensive way of doing it, then you saw the rise of some coaching organizations like BetterUp, where everything was done remotely, everything was done online, everything was done, in the moment, ad hoc. And then you saw organizations say, hold on a second, this is really a leader's responsibility as well. In addition to everything else a leader does, they need to be developing their team, and coaching is a component of developing your team. So wouldn't it be great if the leader could take off their leader hat and then put on a coach hat in certain situations and coach their employee one-on-one to help them through their development or with their development? So that's when you saw exactly what you've been experiencing. So because of the value that was experienced by these high-level leaders and wanting to make sure that the rest of the organization benefited from it, there are many different ways of doing that. And one is by having the leaders themselves undergo coaching, training, and certification and being delivered themselves, or using external companies that are more scalable, that are online, and having people even through AI. Now we do a lot of AI coaching too. So that's even more scalable. And it's also it's probably, in a sense, more private. And so people don't feel like, okay, this coach knows my stuff and they're also coaching this other person and they know all this stuff. But the AI is just not going to tell my stuff. Not that the coach is ever allowed to tell your stuff, but it's not a human. So they may feel more comfortable if there's something embarrassing that they want to discuss with an AI and not with a coach or anything along those lines.
Yeah. So if someone called you, like say a head of school called you today and said, Karl, I'm fascinated by Enneagram, but I have no idea where to start. Like, what advice would you offer?
Always start with self. Self is the very primary instrument we start with. Let's understand ourselves. Self-awareness is the first part of emotional intelligence building. So understanding self, go take the assessment. Let's do a debrief. Let's understand what's going on for you. And then what do you want to accomplish with the school, with your leadership team, with the faculty, with everyone. Right. So it's let's start with self first, and then we'll start expanding it beyond that. And that would be starting with self with every single person on the team, in the school, on the faculty. Yeah.
Karl Hebenstreit, founder and CEO at Perform and Function. Thank you for joining me today. And if somebody wants to reach out, what's the best way for them to do that?
Well, it was my pleasure, Peter. And reaching out to me is easy. I have a website, which is Perform and Function. So it's a play on the word of form and function, but it's really performandfunction.com. Also, I think my LinkedIn is right on the bottom of the screen. So it's R. Karl Hebenstreit on LinkedIn. And my email is karl@performandfunction.com. And you can always find my books on Amazon. And so again, that was The How and Why, Taking Care of Business with the Enneagram. And we also have Nina and the Really, Really Tough Decision, which is now available. I'm going to say it's in 4 languages right now, and it's about to be released in the 5th one in the next month.
Oh, congrats.
And then there's a 6th language already in the works too. So Portuguese coming up, and then Danish coming up right after that. And it's already in English, Spanish, French, and Greek. And then the last book is Explicit Expectations. It's the essential guide and toolkit for management fundamentals.
Thank you again. I appreciate it. And, I'm going to have to comb through the transcript to make sure I fully absorb my Enneagram type. It's fantastic.
Well, feel free to get back in touch with me with any questions you have.
Awesome. Thank you, Karl.
Thank you, Peter.